And welcome to the South African Book Review Sessions, your online political book club where everything political literature is dissected, is vivisected, and is eviscerated. When we started this channel, we promised to review a book each and every single day, and we've done that without fail. Please go ahead and click on the subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. Click, 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 click. By doing so, you are making sure that you don't miss out on any reviews of your favorite book. So go ahead, click, 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 and turn on that notification bell. Also, by clicking on the subscribe button, know that you will not incur any extra cost. The subscribe button, clicking on it, makes you incur no extra cost. So it comes absolutely at no extra cost. So go ahead, click on that subscribe button, and let's review books. Importantly, guys, I've made it to my first 100 subscribers. Yay! Like literally, this is the first video I'm making with 100 subscribers on YouTube. Guys, I feel like doing the Madiba dance, or dapping. But I'm so happy. Thank you for the love you're giving, and thank you for the feedback we're getting. Thank you very much for the views. Thank you for everything, you guys. You guys are the wind beneath my wings. You're the reason I do this. I wasn't doing it for numbers at first, but seeing that our community is growing, I will guarantee you that the content will always be there, that there'll always be an abundance of content. Thank you very much for your subscribing into my channel. You're the best. Now, what are we doing today? Today we're doing our 11th book. How are we going to do it? This is how we do our books. We introduce the book to you, tell you a bit about the book, give a rating, give a reasons for a rating, and the show is done. Let's get into it. Today we're doing our 11th book, as I've already said. It's a book by Dr Morley Nkosi, PhD, Black Workers, White Supervisors, the Emergence of the Labor Structure in South Africa. If I had the powers, the authority, if I was President Ramaphosa, I'd make it compulsory for every worker to read this book, both black and white. It is that important. If indeed we really want to transform our society, this is where we need to start, here. So basically, what is this book about? It gives an account of the labor structure of the country for the past 260 years. It tells us of the evolution of the labor structure. It gives us 4 industries that shape the labor structure to what we know today. Now, these are the industries it explains to us. It tells us about the first economic activity in the country, which happened after the settlement of Jan van Riebeeck in 1652. Now, the settlement of Jan van Riebeeck, according to this book, brought about the first systematic labor system in the country, in the following sense. Now, also, importantly, that the first labor system of the country did not just serve the labor system itself. It had to serve capital. Jan van Riebeeck was here as an employee of the VOC, the Dutch East Indian Company. And whatever that happened under his leadership, it was basically happening under the leadership of the VOC. So basically, this is what happened. These guys came with the dromedaries in 1652. There was 100 of them. They had 15 children and women. The rest were men. They were given responsibility to create a station for refreshment for the other ships that are affiliated to the company. That's what we're going to call it for the rest of the presentation, the company. Now, the society evolved from that, and then suddenly they had capitalists to small miner farmers who, from the first contingent of 100, were given land to actually farm and produce the vegetables, the meat, the food that was going to be needed by the ships, because that was a refreshment station, and that was done for the company. And basically that was the first activity, economical activity that took place in the country. Now, while that economic activity was taking place, the first labor structure emerged from that particular setup, because the small scale farmers that were there supplying the station with produce were basically white people, small scale farmers. Under their employ were blacks. Most of them were slaves who arrived from the Guinea in early days, in the 1700s, in the 1700s, then, to actually substantiate the labor force and to maximize profits and to spend as little as possible on wages. These ones were not paid. The black slaves were not paid. They were just given food. They would be given rice and seal meat, because those the things were catched by them. They were farmed by them. Those were things they ate. They were given enough food to keep strong and to reproduce. So what happened in that part, in that initial phase of the development of the country, was the first labor system, where a white man was in charge and the Africans were there as cheap labor, as slave labor, actually. Now, that evolved eventually up until the discovery of copper. The Khoisans who were working for this white capitalist introduced them to a place that was copper. It went to be explored, and it was discovered 500 kilometers away. And after a long time and a lot of planning and stuff, eventually there was mining taking place in South Africa. The first mining operations took place in Namaqualand. Copper was being mined, and a lot of foreign expertise was supposed to be brought into the country to actually maximize the extraction and the mining of the copper. That meant that miners from Australia, from New Zealand, from America, from parts of Europe were brought into the country to actually assist in the mining of the copper. Now, the result of that was another labor structure. The system that was taken in the agricultural and pastoral colonial Cape actually was inherited by the Namakwa copper mines. The capitalist was in charge, and it was usually a white man. It was always a white man, not usually. It was always a white man. There was a white man in charge. There's a capitalist. Below the white man now, there was an introduction of a foreign labor, foreign miner, like you'd find an American miner, an Australian miner, being in charge of the South African whites who were there, who were very unskilled, who were quite unskilled, and the blacks. But the thing is, the unskilled whites got paid better than the skilled Africans. The unskilled whites were overseers of skilled Africans. Unskilled whites, overseers of skilled Africans. That was the labor structure there. The capitalist on top taking all the money home. The foreign expert taking some of the money home, like the second biggest portion home, obviously. The white South African would be there taking peanuts home, but much better than the skilled and unskilled Africans. So that was the labor structure of the Namakwa mines. As you can tell, the structure from agricultural and pastoral Cape was inherited to this system. Now, we fast forward again with the discovery of diamonds. The discovery of diamonds led to British expansionism in a form of colonialism and British capitalism. Now, the book tells us on how the British would actually extend the border of the Cape every time a mineral was discovered. And more oftenly, that led to wars. But the colonial authorities could face that wars. They had the strongest and biggest army in the world by that time. They could fight anyone. So the British could do as they please. They expanded their borders, first to Namaqualand, second to Griqualand West after the discovery of the diamonds. The same thing happened in the diamond fields. The labor structure was basically the same as in the copper Namakwa mines. White capitalists on top, foreign experts below, local South African whites are below, and at the lowest were the African workers. And almost in every case, the people who did the real job, who did the real hard work, were the Africans. And the capitalists and the mines would always have a labor force, because if you can remember, the state introduced a hard tax that forced many men to leave their places of comfort at home to go seek work in cities, and that's where the mines would get cheap labor. So it was important already. Cheap labor at first during the agricultural and pastoral Cape Colony. Cheap labor was important to maximize the profits of the company. In the Namakwaland mines, cheap labor was supposed to be maintained to maintain the profits for the investors and the British capitalist. Even in the diamond mines, the same thing had to be maintained. Cheap labor had to be maintained for the profits of capital. And that is basically an inherited structure that even got to 1902. That even got us to the discovery of gold. Now, the discovery of gold came with also basically the same thing. Now, they can say they did not discover gold. The book does give a clearer context to that you see Africans were trading with gold for a very long time. So when the Europeans discovered that these people were trading with gold, they wanted to know where they got the gold, and they got into the gold things and the gold mining industry. Now, gold mining was big. It was big in places like the Lydenburg district, Barberton, and other places, but the discovery of gold in the Witwatersrand made all those other discoveries a joke, because that was the proper reef. And these guys took over the labor structure from the diamond mines of the Griqualand West, from the copper mines of Namakwa, even from Namakwaland, from the agriculture and pastoral Cape Colony days. They took all of those and incorporated into the gold mining. That meant they maximize profits at the expense of the Africans. The Africans would do the real hard-working labor, but then the whites, as mostly unskilled, at times mostly unskilled, would supervise the skilled Africans. An African could be skilled, but they would never be paid more than an unskilled white. It was a system of labor that was discovered many years ago. It is a system of labor that we know about even today. We know that in many of these private companies, you come there as a black boy with your big degree, you still have a white boy who with only a grade 12, who's your supervisor, who pays you, who shouts at you, while they don't know anything about that job. Less skilled, less qualified. This book also tells us about the impact of the South African gold on the global financial system, the gold standards, how South African gold influence the concept of the gold standard. He talks about it. This book is so incredible. The author goes into deeper detail about South African trade unionism, tells us about a strike that took place in 1884 of 300 white workers and was supported eventually by 15,000 blacks. Tells us a very sad ending to that story on how whites got their demands. The demands were that they should not be searched in the copper and in the diamond mines in Kimberley. Yes, the whites did not get searched, but the blacks still continued to be searched. Though they fought side by side with whites, the white counterparts never assisted the blacks. And that was a taste of what was about to come for many, many years. The book goes into deep detail and tells us about the 1921-1922 strike. It tells us about the 1987-88 strike. It tells us about the Marikana strike of 2012. It gives a complete detail of how the mining industry was the progenitor of South African labor as we know it. It talks about how South Africa will always be susceptible to capital, as we have seen through its development in the industry of the gold mining, diamond mining, copper mining, and back from the agricultural days and from the arrival of whites. He speaks into detail about that. It's quite a beautiful book. So between 0 and 10, what would I rate it? I'd rate it a 7. I was going to rate it an 8, but the problem with the book is the mining jargon is just it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. The only disadvantage reading this book, it's like, if you don't have any experience with mining, just like myself, no experience whatsoever, never been to a mine, don't know what goes into a mine, don't know anything, not even a single equipment, nothing about mines. And this man uses mining languages, like serious mining language, and it makes the book a bit difficult to read. Even if you were going to read it in a couple of days, you might read it like over a month because of you trying to make sense of the details he gives on the processes of mining and the language he uses. It becomes rather a bit difficult for that. And because of that, I was going to give it an 8, and I'm not going to give it an 8 because of that. And it will just get a humble 7. A good 7. It's a very good rating 7. Not many of my books are given ratings at 7. One thing I liked about this book also, it gave a good account, a proper account of the implementation of apartheid laws. Like the main reason we saw the introduction of the Herzog bills in the 1930s were basically influenced by what was happening in the country for a very long time. It tells us about how the 1923 study by the Dale Corporation of New York and the Dutch Reformed Church on the poor white problem escalated the problems for black labor. Even though there were skilled black people, they were supposed they were compromised actually because of the poor white problems. If you want to learn more about that, the issue of the poor white problems, the role of the Dutch Reformed Church and the Dale Carnegie study, and the Carnegie Corporation study, you can check this book out. The name of the book is Super Afrikaners, inside the Afrikaner Broederbond by Ivo Wilkins and Hans Strydom, and you can check the link on the description below. We've already done this book, very interesting book. And this book also goes in to tell us about some of the societal ills that came about with the advancement of the mining industry. The birth of gold mining came about with the introduction of compounds and hostels. Compounds and hostels over the years became a breeding ground for many ills in South Africa. Homosexuality amongst Africans is first tracked within the hostels and the compounds serving British capital and big mining houses. Also, to learn more about the ills that come about from hostels, you can check out this book. It's a book by Greg Ade. It's called War Party. In this book, Greg Ade tells us about how the hostels are a breeding ground for political hitmen and assassins in general. Check out the description of this check out the link in the description below. Now, this is the book we're talking about today. I'm saying the book gets a 7. It's an interesting book. Go get it, go read it, come back, let's engage it. There's no way that you read this book and you don't understand the labor structure of the country better. There's no way that you read this book and you don't have an idea of how the attempts we claim to be making are quite superficial and not getting to the main issues. The issue of the labor structure and the hierarchy whereby a black person is always at the bottom of the food chain is founded within the DNA of the country, and it needs to be challenged vociferously, like proper challenge, and it will require more than just political will. It will require serious love for one's people and dedication to the cause of making their lives better, or else capitalism will sway anyone from the direction of changing the lives of the majority of our people who still find themselves in the bottom of the food chain. This is a good account of why things are the way they are, but more especially within the labor sector of the country. It's an absolutely wonderful book. I enjoyed reading it. I highly encourage people to get it, and it will assist us. It will assist us in understanding the phenomena of in our country. It will give us a better understanding. Guys, I enjoyed reading this book. Hope you enjoy it too.